Hello, everybody. I'm Clay.
I'm Damien.
I made.
Max. Hi.
Max is here with us. We have another special guest. Today, we're going to be going over Damien Chazelle. We're going to be ranking his movies. We're doing four films instead of five. We're not going to be counting Guy and Madeline on a park bench because Tavi wasn't able to view that film in Finland. Um, it's not. It's not. It's not available there. But Max did see it. So Max, if you want to say a couple words about it, like I'm totally cool with that. I didn't watch it myself. Um, as far as familiarity goes, I my first Damien Chazelle movie was Whiplash. I saw that all the way back whenever it came out, I believe in 2013. Um, I enjoyed it a lot at the time. I was kind of rooting for it at the Oscars as well. But what about you guys?
I'll
Um,
rude it. You.
do you want me? Okay. Well, I haven't seen any of these, so I'm very much getting, a new perspective on them. And then just going through them and saying what I thought. Obviously, I'd heard of like Whiplash, all, and I don't really watch that many contemporary films though, so it wasn't something I'm that familiar with.
So yeah, I knew everything except Babylon. Um, and I saw Whiplash and La La Land in the cinema when they came out. And First Man I kind of miss, but I did check it out later. But yeah, really excited for the episode, and um, yeah, I like it.
I forgot to mention too, the one film I didn't see aside from his debut was First Man. So that was a new watch for me.
Yeah. And I mean, I would say I'm very familiar with Damien Chazelle's stuff. I've seen most of everything he's been involved with. I mean, the first one I saw was Whiplash, and no spoilers, but Whiplash had an impact on me where I was just like, you know, this is the kind of director where I have to see everything he does when it comes into theaters, just out of curiosity. So yeah, I saw Whiplash, La La Land, First Man, and Babylon all in theaters when they came out. He also co-wrote on a couple of movies that he didn't direct. Like Grand Piano. I saw that. That's it's like a cool little thriller thing with Elijah Wood plays a pianist, and what what's John Cusack plays a sniper who's watching him play piano, and if he makes a mistake during his piano solo, John Cusack's gonna shoot him. So that's like a fun
Sounds
movie.
really good.
Yeah, I like that movie. It's very fun, and it's like a cool technical achievement too, because Elijah Wood like couldn't play piano before he started playing it, and then he has to like play piano like this like virtuoso genius person. So it's pretty neat. And then he co-wrote a movie that I loved in 2016, the same year as La La Land, called 10 Cloverfield Lane, which was just an awesome thriller. I'm a huge fan of that movie. Directed by the guy who would go on to direct Prey, the last Predator movie.
That
And
wasn't
then
J.J. Abrams?
no, I mean J.J. Abrams like is like a producer on all the Cloverfield movies. I don't think he's directed any of them. Like the first one was Matt Reeves, and then this one was God, what's his name? What's his name? Oh, Dan Trachtenberg, yeah. And then the third one, Cloverfield Paradox. I don't know who directed that because that's not a good movie.
It's not.
Um, no. Um, and so the only things he's done that I haven't seen is he did do a draft on The Last Exorcism Part 2, which I thought about watching, but I didn't watch it because I also haven't seen The Last Exorcism Part 1. So if I ever do watch them, I'm going to want to watch both of them. And then he also executive produced and directed a couple episodes of this TV miniseries called The Eddie about this jazz musician, and I didn't get a chance to watch that either. I don't know what that's streaming on. But
That
yeah, and as you mentioned, I also watched Guy and Madeline on a Park Bench, so I'll talk about that really briefly. Basically, I think of that movie as like kind of a proto version of La La Land. It has a lot of stuff that I think you would pick up later with that. What's cool about Guy and Madeline on a Park Bench is it's kind of like a stealth musical. It's like they don't really start singing for like a long time into the narrative. So when it happens, it actually kind of increases the magical quality of it because you really don't expect them to start singing and dancing. So it's kind of neat. It's very different than his other movies. It's very like naturalistic, the performances in it. I mean, they're like non-actors or at least actors who didn't have a lot of experience. So I mean, it's not as good as his other films, but I think it's a very interesting movie. And if you're a fan of the guy's films, I think it's worth a watch, especially if you're a big fan of La La Land.
something interesting about that movie, that was a project that he had because he went to Harvard University and that was a school project for him. And he was roommates with a longtime composer Justin Hurwitz, who's very pivotal in all five of his films. He scored each and every one of his films. I think he's great. I think he's a fantastic composer.
Oh, yeah. Incredible. Yeah.
So, Aiden, you want to kick us off with your number 4 pick?
Yeah, sure. I can start us off. Number 4 for me, um, overall the filmography, I would say I'm pretty positive on. This is the one exception, which is I think you guys knew it was coming, Babylon. I think honestly, this movie to me was kind of terrible. I, it's it's the story of classic Hollywood, the silent era, and all of that. But I don't really connect with the characters. I think it's gratuitous and debauched for no reason. It has scenes of just random things happening. Movie starts with this giant, like, 20-minute orgy scene is like the second scene of the movie. There's just no range. There's no balance. It's just I think of what other films have achieved with a 3-hour runtime. I think of, epics and things like that. I mean, this movie is longer than some Lord of the Rings movies, and it's longer than like Lawrence of Arabia, and it just doesn't achieve anything with that runtime. It's just a bunch of noise and a bunch of filler scenes. I think it makes me depressed watching it because it's all of this just gross imagery and kind of weirdness. And I don't like it too because I love the aesthetic of classic Hollywood. I love, you know, everything, all of the glitz and glamour of the 30s, and to see it portrayed in such a disrespectful and like dirty way is very disheartening, I guess. Like it's like he was didn't pay respect to this, it's Kane and elephant shit on everything. I don't know. I didn't like it at all. Um, I'll give it 2 stars because it was at least technically well executed. I can't complain about that. But in terms of the actual like film, I was pretty disappointed.
Yeah. I did see it coming. Yeah. Yeah. Um, and well, I have the same number 4, Babylon.
Oh,
Um, yeah, sorry. I'm not the best with long movies in general, maybe, and um, if it's gonna be long, I prefer it to be like, yeah, like Aiden said, some sort of epic style movie like Lord of the Rings or um there are aspects I like about this, especially Brad Pitt in this movie is pretty awesome, and I like following him around and his ups and downs, and I like all that uh sort of old cinema type of things they bring on, and I don't know. I feel like Aiden said, I feel like it's a bit random at points and stuff just happen and plenty of different uh species are shown and uh, it's just I don't know if I might be missing some sort of point of this movie too, but um I like in the end how it's kind of has that shows different kind of movies in the end, and it's funny how they show Avatar 2 there and how Avatar 2 kind of uh took all the spotlight from this movie, but it's kind of funny. But um
The
yeah, it's
biggest blank check ever written. This was it was a box office failure, sadly.
yeah, it was. But yeah, I don't know, it's just over 3 hours. I feel like it's just it's a good 2 hour movie for me. Um, to really care for some of these characters that much, I feel like I usually like Margot Robbie, and I think her performance is good, but I just couldn't get into her character at all. And I don't know, there's the Tobey Maguire's scene, which is very odd, and it's just the guy eating the mouse, and just I don't know why we needed all those scenes, but Clay will justify all those things with his review, but I can't. But yeah, it's awesomely made and all, but it's just something I wouldn't watch again, but it still has its merits, so it's like maybe 3 stars. I don't, yeah, for me. Yeah. Clay, what's your number 4?
That's right. My
Yeah.
number 4 is First Man, released in 2018. The movie stars Ryan Gosling as, of course, Neil Armstrong. It also has Claire Foy, who I know from The Crown. She played Queen Elizabeth in like the first 2 seasons. Um, she plays Janet Armstrong, Neil's wife, and other notable actors in here: Jason Clarke, Kyle Chandler, Corey Stoll, and Patrick Fugit, however you spell his last name. This won Best Visual Effects at the Academy Awards, and it was also nominated for Best Sound Mixing and Best Sound Editing. Those 2 awards are no longer a thing anymore. I believe it's just Best Sound now. And then it was also nominated for Best Production Design as well. And this film got its rights way back in 2003. Clint Eastwood bought the rights for it, but Chazelle took up the project in the mid 2010s. Gosling's performance here is quite subdued compared to La La Land, of course. And after losing his child to cancer, he takes up Project Jiminy, and Claire Foy and Gosling moved to Houston. You can tell that Neil is persistent to try his best to prepare for this project, probably because he's so grief-stricken. He lost his child. And the space race, it's in full swing between the States and the Soviets. And I like Kyle Chandler's character, Deke. He kind of enforces the importance of this. I thought he was very, he's very, he was very, he played the role pretty well. I love the sound design in this movie while they're in the spacecraft. The scene with the Agena is very, very intense, where things are just spinning. Claire Foy is, I think, incredible in this movie. I love her performance as Janet Armstrong. And then Justin Hurwitz provides the score here, as he did in all of Chazelle's movies. They were actually roommates at Harvard University, like I said. So the visual effects in this film are pretty impressive, although I will say some of the parts were too dark. I think it's definitely Chazelle's darkest looking film. I think it's best to watch this movie with the lights off. It wasn't shot on green screen. Instead, it uses LED displays, and these projected images simulated the Earth, the exterior of the spacecraft, and space itself. There's a lot of handheld camera work here, especially inside of the spacecrafts, which reflects how hectic everything is. Production design is very cool. Yeah, overall, this is a good movie. If I were more interested in the subject matter, it'd be a bit better. I did find this movie to be a little bit of a slog in parts, but on a technical level, and because of the good performances, including Foy and Gosling, of course, I'm giving this a 3.5 star film. It's good. It's not something I would watch again. But I did enjoy learning more about Neil Armstrong. I hear that this movie is pretty factually accurate to his life, and I think it's pays great respect to that man. So 3.5 for me.
All right. And my number 4 is also First Man, actually. Now this is the only film of Chazelle's that he directed that he didn't write. And it's the only one also that's based on real stuff. That, I mean, Babylon has elements of that, but it's obviously not a true story. But yeah, First Man is a great movie, I think, and it's just a testament to how much I love Chazelle as a filmmaker that this is last, because I would still say this is like a 4-star film, a really really good film. I mean, technically, it's fantastic. The sound work, the visual effects work. I mean, Chazelle. One of my favorite things about him as a filmmaker is this team he's built around him. The Linus Sandgren doing the cinematography, Tom Cross doing the editing, Justin Hurwitz doing the scores, and these are people who like work with him every time out. He's like assembled this team that he can rely on, and they're all like artists who are like on the top of their game. I mean, I think Whiplash is the only movie that Linus Sandgren didn't shoot, but he shot the past 3. But yeah, I mean, the acting in this by Ryan Gosling and Claire Foy is great. I mean, Ryan Gosling, kind of plays 2 types of roles. He has that more like outgoing, fun kind of part, like he did in La La Land and The Nice Guys and Barbie. And then he has these more subdued parts, like in this and Drive and Place Beyond the Pines, Only God Forgives. But I think in this role, even though he is very subdued, you really buy the emotion from him and the pain he's going through and the apprehension and all of this. Like, you can read a lot, with him showing very little, which is a sign of a really good performance. And Claire Foy is excellent in it. The other actors, I mean, this is one of those movies that's like full of really good actors like Jason Clarke and Kyle Chandler and Corey Stoll, Shea Whigham, but it's a true story. So a lot of these people are just kind of, you know, they are serving the role they actually served, and there isn't an opportunity for like a full arc for them or for them to do something, super interesting like you could engineer for them to do in a fictional film. So not all of them get a chance to like really show off much. But the cast is good. Yeah, I'm particularly. I mean, Tom Cross's editing is great, as he always is. I think he's one of the best editors working right now. And the music by Justin Hurwitz is super cool. It incorporates like a lot of theremin into it, and like not just because it sounds like spacey and sci-fi and stuff, but also like Neil Armstrong was like really into the theremin. Like he loved theremin music. Like he had like a tape of theremin music that he played during the Apollo 11 mission when they were coming back to Earth and stuff. So I thought it was really nice that they incorporated that in so prominently and stuff. So yeah, I mean, I really like the film. I just think in comparison to Chazelle's other 3 films, I mean, it is a little more subdued. It's not as much fun. It's not as passionate. Doesn't have as much energy. But it's also not that kind of film. It's kind of a mournful and meditative kind of film. So while I do really respect it as a piece of craft and think he did a fantastic job with it, if I want to watch a movie and have fun, I'm not going to choose First Man. I'm going to choose one of the other three, as good as it is. So yeah, 4 stars.
Interesting. I think I would have predicted everyone's last place if I had, before the fact, gone down and written down what I thought everyone's would be. Um, yeah, so for my number three, the good news is I'm pretty positive from here on out. I'm going all the way up to a 4-star rating for my number third, which is Whiplash, his first feature film. And it is obviously the story of this obsessive jazz drummer who is placed under the tutelage of the, abusive professor of jazz. And the story is about his kind of mission to like please him and make him respect him while also trying to get out from under his thumb, and kind of there's that element of conflict because on one hand he desperately wants the approval, but on the other hand he thinks he knows that he's like abusive and a tyrant and kind of an evil person. And I think that's my favorite scene, is the final scene where you see him play the piece, and it's kind of sick to watch because you can tell he wants his approval in some way, and I think, he's glad that he accepts that he's done a good job with the song. And then you have the shot of his dad like looking through the doorway and like horror at how he's just totally, sold everything about himself just to chase the approval of someone who's objectively a terrible person. I think people misinterpret the film all the time in terms of like, I saw there was someone on Twitter who said like, Whiplash is my favorite inspirational movie. I'm like, I don't think you're supposed to be inspired by this type of movie. Like, I think the film should be like a cautionary tale. Um, I don't know if they got it. But yeah, it's a great movie. And the only thing that's holding me back from a little bit higher of a score is I think some of the story beats in the first half are a little formulaic, in the sense of you have like the beat of like the recital where he is late and then he crashes the car and stuff like that. Stuff that feels like, okay, this is the part of the movie where he like loses his passion for, or not his passion, he loses his, scholarship to go to this college, and then he has to reignite his passion for music. Stuff like that feels like beats I've seen in movies before. But I think what, yes, the film is, you have sequences like it's a film where kind of I think the strongest scenes are the ones that are the least like plot centric, and the ones that are like the rushing, dragging scene kind of near the first third. I guess it's around that mark. Which, it doesn't progress the story so much as it focuses on this one moment and just stretches it out so you get a sense of the characters. I think that's one of the best scenes. And the performances are all very strong. I do think like obviously there was like some complaining from like actual jazz musicians. Oh, that's not accurate to real jazz. It's like no one cares. It's a movie. Like movies are not accurate to real life. That's the point of movies. So yeah, very, very good movie. I'd be excited to rewatch it again to see if my thoughts would change. But yeah, I enjoyed it. And just going a 4-star, and yeah, really strong one.
Yeah. My next one is the film that has been talked about um, by Clay and Max, it's First Man. And yeah, basically don't have anything to add in some ways, but just think it's really impressive on a technical level of a film. Ryan Gosling, I would cast him in every movie if I can, but he's great in this one too. Then yeah, more subdued role here, um, and well, the acting all around is great, and how it looks, and the moon landing scene, and just yeah, um, I don't know, it's just this type of I kind of see Clint wanting to do this movie. I think it kind of almost feels a bit like what he would do, and yeah, just yeah, it's just a very good um movie, and it's doesn't yeah have the energy of like Babylon, but it's just very solid, and but it's definitely not the funnest movie, but yeah, it's just impressive and just a very solid movie about Neil Armstrong. And yeah, I don't have much to say about it, so yeah, 4 stars for me.
Nice, nice. We still have Aiden left to talk about that movie. Wonder where he'll place that. I have a pretty good idea, but my next one has also already been talked about from Aiden, Whiplash. This movie is from Bloomhouse Productions, which whenever I saw that opening cut of like Bloomhouse, that kind of threw me off because they usually do like kind of crappy horror movies sometimes. But it won 3 awards at the Academy, including Best Sound Mixing, Best Supporting Actor for J.K. Simmons, which I think is well deserved, and Best Film Editing for Tom Cross. It was also nominated for Best Picture and Best Adapted Screenplay. The film opens with Miles Teller and J.K. Simmons, who plays student Andrew Neiman and instructor Terrence Fletcher, respectively. Off the back, you could tell Fletcher is kind of a dick, so Fletcher gives Andrew a chance to be in his class, and it's strange because you think he's encouraging at first, like strict, yes, but also encouraging, and evidently he gives Andrew a chance, and things starts to go pretty awry pretty fast. Whiplash gets its title from the first song Terrence asks his class to rehearse. And you can tell he's hard on his students. And I love the first tense scene of the movie whenever Terrence throws a chair at Andrew and asks him if he was rushing or dragging. And that's kind of apparently one of the things that inspired another jazz musician who I'm forgetting the name at. Somebody threw a cymbal at his head. So that's kind of why Fletcher did that. And so I can't really tell if Fletcher is if he believes in Andrew or not, but Andrew becomes obsessed with trying to please him. His hands start to bleed from practicing too hard. Fletcher gets fired for emotionally abusing his students. Andrew kind of led that on after he got into a car accident and beat him up, having gotten suspended. But they meet in a bar again, and Fletcher says this line that I think sums up the movie pretty well. He says, "There's no 2 words in the English language more harmful than good job." Um, I love the ending, especially the editing in the final act. It's so chaotic and euphoric. And interestingly enough, Miles Teller did 99% of his own drumming in this movie, with only some scenes requiring a drum double for certain intense moments. And I think Simmons was also actually really playing the piano in the jazz club scene. And yeah, I mean, I love the color palette in this film, which incorporates different shades of green and blue, but also yellow and gold, which reflect the conflict between Andrew and Terrence. I do think the ending of the movie is pretty encouraging. Um, because it feels so good to see Andrew fight back at his professor and do such a damn well good job. And even if Fletcher is like approval of that, even if Fletcher approves of that at the very last scene when they're staring each other down and you can tell he's impressed. But I find it encouraging. There's parts of this movie where I think the pacing is a little bit off. I do agree with Aiden that there are certain beats that are a little bit cliche, which is why I'm giving this 4 stars. But for an indie film, at this time, I think it's very well made, very well crafted, and it's a lot of fun to watch. Definitely, I would watch it again.
All right, and my number 3 is a movie we haven't talked about yet. It's La La Land. Um, and I mean, I really like this movie a lot. I like all of these movies a lot. This is just where it falls for me because it has really heavy competition. But this movie's wonderful. I'm really picky about musicals. I don't. There are a few musicals I really love, but they can also be really annoying to me. You know, but this film, I think it works really well. I think the dancing in it is beautifully choreographed. I think the songs in it are really well written. Yeah, City of Stars, Audition, all of that. They're good songs. And I knew actually Ryan Gosling could sing because he actually put out an album. He was in a band called Dead Man's Bones. They only put out 1 record, but I actually do recommend it. It's a cool album. It's good to like listen to around like Halloween. But yeah, I mean, Gosling is wonderful in this movie, doing almost totally the opposite of what he did in First Man. Uh, just being a lot warmer, a lot more emotional, but having moments where he's a real asshole too. It's like the characters are very realistic in the way they're drawn, and their relationship is very realistic, and the way it all ends up. I mean, no spoilers, but the way it all ends is very realistic. And it's kind of similar to Whiplash in that it's a movie about that's kind of about the cost of ambition and what are you willing to give up, in order to make your like aspirational kind of dreams, your career goals come true in a way. Um, and Justin Hurwitz's music is incredible in this. Tom Cross's editing is incredible. Linus Sandgren's camera work has so much energy to it. Um, yeah, it's just a wonderful spectacle of a film. But for me, the other 2 films that we're going to get to just had more of an impact on me personally. But I do think this is a great movie. I am glad that Moonlight beat it that year at the Oscars. I do prefer that movie. But I'm also glad that Chazelle won director. I think that was very well deserved. And also this movie, every time I watch it I remember this because I went to see this with my mom and a friend of mine. It came out around the holidays and she was visiting for like New Year's and stuff, and she had my favorite complaint anybody's ever had about a movie ever, which is the ending of this movie, is like it gives you a lot to think about. And I was coming out of it and I had been emotionally affected by it, and I was like trying to go through it all in my head. And she was just like, well, that wasn't very good. And I was like, wow, really? You didn't like it? And she was like, no, they were too good looking. So that's my mom. She doesn't have empathy for good looking people. She thinks good looking people can't have problems. So that's interesting. But yeah, great movie. 4.5 star movie. Excellent.
Emma Stone is absolutely gorgeous. I love her.
Yeah, I barely even mentioned Emma Stone. Emma Stone's incredible in this movie. I mean, I think this and Poor Things, she won Oscars for both of them, and she deserved to. And also, oh, and I also forgot to mention with Guy and Madeline, I mentioned the whole musical thing, but it's closer to this in some ways too, because I mean that's also a movie with the tragic romance angle to it, and it's about a jazz musician. the main character in it is an actual jazz musician, not an actor, and there's a lot of scenes in it with jazz music and people going to jazz concerts. So yeah, I'm gonna forget to mention tons of things, but I'm glad I remembered that. So yeah, 4.5.
Great review of La La Land. And I guess now my number two, I have to reveal both what my number two is, and obviously through process of elimination, what my number one is. And I'll say that I think it was very close, very hard to decide. And ultimately, I went with the film La La Land, as Max mentioned. And I guess what I would say about this movie is obviously it's a musical. I like musicals. They're not my favorite genre, but I do like them. I mean, The Sound of Music is one of my favorite movies of the 60s and things like that. I think when done right, they're very great. And what really, for me, the whole movie, if you asked me 15 minutes before the end of the movie, I'd be like, oh yeah, I'd probably give it like a 4 star. What moved me up to a 4.5 is the ending like 15 minutes with that whole sequence in the nightclub and seeing that their lives in that kind of like alternate reality, I guess you could say, which is, I think, my favorite individual scene of anything in a Chazelle film. It's such a great, very pretty, very poignant, but also bittersweet um, thing. And also, some of the other great sequences, like the opening with the cars all on the freeway and the song starts. That's great. A lot of the music is really strong. All the individual songs, they have a quality where they're like traditional, like show tunes, but they also have this modern sensibility. And really, the only thing that's holding me back on this one a little bit is similarly to Whiplash, I felt like some of the beats were things that I'd kind of like seen before, like the bit where she like loses her passion for acting and has to be like talked into going back to it by the Ryan Gosling character was something I felt like I've kind of seen this before, but that's a very minor, really qualm. And I think the rest of the movie does a lot to assuage that. And yeah, it's a great relationship the two characters have. It's the Ryan Gosling, his whole character of being such a like purist and like resistant to change is interesting because of how it intersects with his kind of relationship in terms of comparing that. And it's always interesting with music because obviously Chazelle is very musically minded as a director. Almost all of his films, in fact, I think all of them include a very prominent musical element somewhere, you know. So he's very interested in that. And I think that whole element is very strong. And I really enjoy that. So yeah, I'm going with a 4.5 because the film is very strong. It works very well. I do still prefer Moonlight, as I think Max did. But I wouldn't have been busted up if this had won Best Picture. Or I guess it won for about 5 minutes and then the win was retracted. So it was technically very briefly an Academy Award winner. Um, so yeah, great movie, and maybe in another year. If that came out 2015, I probably would have been pretty happy with that winning that year. But yeah, so very strong movie.
I still haven't seen Moonlight yet, so I can't really comment on that. But that is kind of a crazy thing to happen. Like the second most craziest thing that happened at the Oscars.
Behind the stage slap.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, my number two is Whiplash. So, yeah, saw it in the theater in 2014, when it came out, and yeah, it's a cool. It's almost like a sort of like a thriller type of, I don't know. In some ways, it's like trying to also be the best of yourself, but in a wrong way, sort of thing. And just it gets obviously out of hand, and he tries to impress his music teacher, and all goes to different things. And yeah, just J.K. Simmons is, I think, the best role he's had. I don't really know how many I've seen of his film. I kind of usually see him more of as a, well, I guess it's also a supporting role here, but I feel like he does quite a bit of these supporting role types films. But yeah, he's awesome. This is a bit more low key than all the other uh, Chazelle movies. Well, this is earlier than everything we've talked about, and it doesn't have the to the same level to me that it isn't as refined as filmmaking as maybe already in the next movie, but it's also pretty impressive still, and great editing as always, and all. And yeah, really enjoyed this. It's a perfect length. Um, yeah, I agree. There's a bit of those, like what Aiden said, we've seen before, but uh, to me, I'm I'm not sure that even thought came to my mind at that moment, but at those moments. But yeah, but I kind of see it. Yeah, but so it's a 4.5 for me. It's a great movie. Would recommend to watch if you haven't. And yeah, cool drumming and all. So that's my number two.
Yeah, I can't really think of many movies where J.K. Simmons is the lead or lead role as much as Whiplash. I think the first time I've seen him was in Burn After Reading. He had a very small role in that movie. He's very good though. Um, I was wondering if anybody would have the next one at number one, and someone does because my number two is La La Land. Um, this got a ton of nominations at the Academy Awards, like 14 nominations. I'm not going to list them all, but Emma Stone got a deserving Best Actress award. I think she's fantastic in this movie. And there's not a lot to say about this one, except Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling are just so magnetic on screen to watch. I think Gosling gives such a strong performance in this. It's truly incredible. The actors complement the script very well, and I don't think this film would have worked with anyone other than Ryan and Emma. It's such a deep dive into the human mind and emotion. It explores passion, desire, and sacrifice. It's such a beautiful story. Emma and Ryan do a beautiful job telling it. The visuals have me in utter awe. I think combined with the script, camera work, and also the soundtrack, it's just very good. The scene where Mia leaves Greg for Sebastian is magical, and their first kiss is just that whole sequence is just so good. Love that John Legend is in this film. I think he does really well. And I love the monologue he has in this about jazz being about the future, and Gosling wanting to have it to stay. Like he's more of a traditionalist. And the film is segued by seasons, which is cool. I think I like it whenever movies do that. I love the scene where Mia says she hates jazz and Sebastian educates her by taking her to a club. That's a dream that Sebastian has, is just running a club like that. And I love Gosling's passion, even if that passion gets a little bit lost in later in the film, especially in the climax. Chazelle said about this and Whiplash being very similar, saying they're both about the struggle of being an artist and reconciling your dreams with the need to be human. La La Land is just much less angry about it, which I agree with. There's a lot of similarities. Also in the vein of Whiplash, Gosling went through rigorous training on the piano for this movie. I'm sure he's already probably always had a wonderful voice. I do like his voice a lot. Um, I'm just going to say my favorite musical numbers and sequences in this film is obviously the opening musical number on the street, uh, and the initial song whenever Sebastian and Mia meet by that by that bench in the moonlight. It's very nice. And the one where Mia is doing her monologue for the audition is very it kind of hit me a certain way. And of course, shout out to the dream sequence at the end. And of course, the final frames, you know exactly what that smile on both of their faces means to you. Whether you're gonna open it up to your own interpretation, it's very impactful. It's my second favorite score from Justin Hurwitz. I think my first film that I'm going, or my number one that I'm going to talk about has more of a better score to the movie, but the score here is just gorgeous. It really captures the atmosphere of being in a state of La La Land. 5 stars. I really like it. And I need to see Moonlight because I haven't seen that yet. But
All right. And my number 2 is Babylon. Now I do want to say I completely understand why Babylon is a divisive movie, and I completely understand why a lot of people don't like it. Um, it's just kind of my thing, you know. It kind of feels like 4 different movies like slammed together into one movie. You know, there's a lot of scenes in it. It has like these amazing comedy set pieces, like that scene where they're trying to film they're trying to film that movie with Margot Robbie's character, and that guy dies of heat stroke in the booth, and 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 what else? There's that scene where Brad Pitt is filming that movie, that, like, you know, war movie, is like really nuts too. Like the comedy in this is so over the top that it's like almost approaching like kind of Mel Brooks, kind of Monty Python level at times, which is something you don't see that often anymore. But then at the same time, it can be very grounded and very sad and very naturalistic. And it just bounces around between tones and genres. Like, there's even that part kind of near the end with Tobey Maguire where it turns into a horror movie for like 10 minutes. And I think it's so much fun to watch. Like, it's so entertaining. Like the beginning of that movie, I mean, I don't know what Chazelle's intention with this movie was, but it does almost feel like he's sabotaging his career on purpose. It's like everything he shoves into the beginning of the movie, it's like nudity, it's like drugs, it's like people peeing on other people, it's like corpses, it's like an elephant shitting on a guy. It's like every repugnant thing you can imagine is just like shoved right into the beginning of this movie, and it's almost like a challenge. It's almost just like, if you want to leave, do it now, you know. And like, if you can get through this, you can get through the rest of the movie. It's kind of like a litmus test, and like, I was totally on board. I was like, this is insane, and I love it. And it only grew more insane from there, you know. I mean, I think it's a movie, it's clearly indebted to his influences. There's a lot of Paul Thomas Anderson in there and stuff, but I do feel like it's also very him, you know. It's not derivative to the point where it's not like a pure artistic statement from Chazelle as well. I mean, and the acting in it is wonderful. I think Margot Robbie's performance in it is like really, virtuistic. Like, she really, like, she's playing this actress who's like, this incredible actress who can, like bring tears out of nowhere and do all of these, different emotions on a dime and stuff. And if she wasn't an incredible actress, you wouldn't, the movie would fall apart, because that's part of it, that she's supposed to be like this virtuoso who like instantly impresses and charms everyone. And she pulls it off so well. I think it's an incredible performance. I think Brad Pitt, this is one of my favorite Brad Pitt performances. He's really funny in it. He's an underrated comedian. I think, like you mentioned, Burn After Eating, he's hilarious in Burn After Eating. And in this, I think he's great. It's like Margot Robbie's character, where at times he's very funny, but there's also this very tragic element to his character too, and where the film leaves off with his character is very sad. And Diego Calva, who was basically an unknown before this. He'd done some TV, is really good in the movie. Like, he really holds the movie together and does kind of this everyman thing. But then near the end, once he's like kind of near his breaking point, he's not afraid to like bring some darkness to the part and stuff. And I mean, this is a movie like First Man, where it's like full of really good actors, but I think unlike First Man, they all have an opportunity to shine in this. Like, they all get their moments that are really funny or memorable. Especially, I think Eric Roberts playing Margot Robbie's dad is so funny in this movie. Like, every time he showed up on screen, I was like laughing constantly when he was on screen. I think he's great. And then the ending of the movie, which I'm not going to get into what happens, but it switches genres again, and it becomes like an experimental film. And it's like, it for me it pays off. I've talked to people who are like, that ending totally lost me and stuff, but it paid off for me. And I mean, I think it does a similar thing to what La La Land did, and I like that about La La Land too, is that La La Land, it has kind of this vintage, like old-fashioned, old-timey feel to it, this like golden age feel. But then you have these like modern elements coming in and like messing it up. Like, you have like Ryan Gosling playing a guitar, for example, and it just creates this cool duality. And in this it does too. Like, it almost uses nostalgia against you. Like, you've seen the setting of the golden age of Hollywood, tons of times before, and the kind of movie you're getting, and then instantly it's just like, nope, fuck you. I'm gonna give you the movie I want to give you. So it's just, I thought it was just a really fun and cool experience. And for me, it's a 4.5, number two.
Yeah, great
Um,
review.
yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, I understand why this would be a movie people really like. It was not for me. Um, but if I'm not mistaken, that means that all four of us have a different number one. And I'll go first. Um, my number one is First Man, and the reason I have this at number one is I think cinematically it's the most rich experience. He shot it on three different types of cameras. He shot it on 16 millimeter for the scenes in NASA, 35 for those shot outside, and finally 70 for those shot in outer space. So it gives the film an incredible visual diversity. And I also think the use of music and sound is really stunning. Obviously, that big scene where everything cuts out when they finally land on the moon. And the score is just really phenomenal. I love the way it bridges um, scene to scene. I definitely think maybe like Oppenheimer was inspired a bit by this and how it kind of depicted this story. And I really think Ryan Gosling's performance is something very special in terms of how he's able to portray the kind of detached depression that you kind of see with Armstrong during this period. Like, he has to deal with so much grief in terms of like his coworkers, friends getting killed in these rockets, and tragedies at home, like his daughter dying and all that stuff. So I just For me, I think this was the film that I felt the most like this is something that I could really revisit because I think it doesn't fall into any of the kind of biopic cliches that I'm used to. It tells this complete story and it does so in a very visual and captivating way. I'm still just going with a 4.5, not a full 5 for this one, because I think it's maybe wouldn't quite make like my top movies of all time list or something like that. But you know, it's a pretty strong 4.5. And I think it's gonna it's one of my favorite movies of that year, probably. Um, and yeah, I think in general, it's a movie I really wish I had seen on the big screen because I think on the big screen, the experience would be even more stunning with those amazing shots of outer space, of the moon, of, these rockets and all of that. It's an event movie and and maybe that's part of why it's my number one because it's feels like in terms of scale, the largest. Obviously, Babylon's longer, but it doesn't have, this has, massive rockets exploding and stuff. So, and I like that. So, yeah, I'm gonna put that as my number one because it was for me like the most kind of cinematically like eventful, captivating, kind of epic filmmaking.
Yeah. Really thought we would have the same number one, you and me, Adam. But I kind of so yeah, my number one is La La Land. I kind of maybe thought it has that kind of oldest code mentality that you share, but I yeah, but it was definitely it's either that or La La Land, your favorite. But yeah, so yeah, I have La La Land as my favorite. Saw it in the theater. I don't know, did it blew my mind then? But I don't know, is that the word good to use? But the visual style I thought was so awesome, and all the colors and it has like I don't know how they say it, but presented in CinemaScope or I don't know. Uh, it's not actually CinemaScope, but it's just like those fun little things that they add, and it's such a well done movie that I really can't fault in that way. And I was surprised it's my number one because musicals are like Max said, can be kind of tough at points maybe, and I I also in this movie I sometimes cringe a bit. I always kind of get when they ran. Well, I don't know what I'd say randomly, but they kind of just start to sing at points, and then you're just like, oh, okay, you're singing now. It's always kind of odd, um, but it's just a kind of sweet movie love story between Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone and all their struggles and trying to uh, trying to get more out of their lives and all the dreams that they have and so on um and yeah, love Ryan Gosling here and Emma Stone also. uh I don't remember what was nominated, but probably deserving of the Oscar she won. And yeah, love the music. City of Stars is a cool song that they keep bringing on a few times. And um yeah, there are moments, yeah, I just can't help but cringe. Just a personal thing. I don't know. I know I think everyone else liked it, and I do like it. It's really well made and kind of fun, but I feel like when it started, I was like, oh, they're already dancing and everyone is coming out of their cars so happy. And it's not well suited to my Finnish mentality, but like stuck in traffic is not fun. But yeah. But yeah, I don't really have much complaints. I don't know. It's not a full 5 for me. It's 4.5. It's a great movie still, but it's not musicals. I don't know if I ever have a 5-star musical, if I'm being honest. Even I haven't seen Sound of Music though, but yeah, it's not my favorite genre, but all the it's just so damn well made and love the acting and all. Yeah. So yeah, that's my number one. La La Land.
Nice, nice, respectable. I can't wait to hear what you guys will think of West Side Story whenever we get to that in Spielberg. That's probably going to be the next musical we talk about, depending on what directors will do in the interim. But I
Yeah.
gotta say, I really love Emma Stone's career trajectory. Like she started off as very mainstream movies like Easy A and Crazy Stupid Love, and this movie's kind of
Yeah.
bridges the gap between mainstream and experimental, and then now she's like this indie darling with like Poor Things and Maniac and The Curse, and she's just doing great things. I'm really excited to see Kinds of Kindness as well. Um,
Yeah.
but that leaves me at my number one, Babylon, which is just so good. It got nominated for Best Score and Best Production Design at the Academy Awards, but this is just a complete morphia of oral sensation. It's glorified framework, emotional cues, the very separation between observer and observee. Chazelle is talking to us through each frame and dialogue, detailing the absurdity act of movie making. I found myself crying at the most funniest moments, and not tears of joy either. That means something to me. Brad Pitt, Margot Robbie, and Diego Calva are just superb in this. The whole party sequence at the beginning is so epic, and Max is on the nose there. Like, if you want to leave the theater right now, then you can, because you're just getting started. Strap in. And the ending, I really enjoy. I won't reveal the sequence, but I think he's just trying to say that his career in this movie is just a mere speck in the long history and future of movie making, because this is movies are going to happen for at least eternity. And I do agree with Max that this movie is the proto opposite of La La Land in that, La La Land was in modern times and it felt classic, but this is in classical times and feels incredibly modern. I think every part of this movie is very entertaining. I know Tommy said that there's some random moments, but I love how each of the random moments have their own specific feel. You can't put this movie in a box and say this is what this movie is, because it's so many things. I think this is probably my favorite movie of the 2020s so far. I really did like Barbarian too, which also came out this year. I don't know if anybody's seen that. It's a horror movie, but it's very good. Kind of in the similar vein of this movie. It's also experiments with genres, but 5 stars. It's not 10 out of 10. It's like 9.9 out of 10. I think my only gripe that I have is it does feel like at points they're trying to imitate Boogie Nights, especially at the end. There's a lot of PTA influence here, but it's still a fantastic movie. So 10 out of 10. Glorified framework, indeed.
All right,
Great, great.
and yeah, my favorite is Whiplash. And Whiplash is my favorite movie of Chazelle's. It's my favorite movie of that year. It's just one of my favorite movies, I think. Um, I'm really happy that it won Oscars for, sound and editing, and for J.K. Simmons, obviously, who's incredible. I think it's kind of nuts that it didn't win screenplay too. And like, what beat it for screenplay? Like The Imitation Game? Like, come on. It's such a boring script in comparison, but I don't want to get negative. But I don't know. Whiplash is such a fun movie. I mean, it's a thriller. Like, it moves like a thriller, but there aren't like fight scenes. There aren't like car chases and like people pulling out guns and stuff. It's just it's a thriller because of how like emotionally potent it is, and just like the tension between these two people is like so electric, and Miles Teller and J.K. Simmons both, they have neither one of them is, an especially good person, and Chazelle is so great at that, at like presenting people in a way that's very honest, you know, without being like, this is the hero, this is the villain, everybody has good and bad elements. And I think that's really typified by the ending of the movie. It's one of my favorite endings to any movie ever. And even as I was watching it in the theater, I was watching it through the whole film, like, this is really good. I really like this. And then the ending hit, and I was like, this is my favorite movie of the year. I didn't know until that final shot. But the final shot, it just blows up the movie, right? Because it leaves you with so much to think about. I think it can be read both ways. I think it can be read as a cautionary tale, well, that it was just like, it's horrible, this guy allowed himself to be abused, emotionally abused, and that what he put himself through physically, and breaking up with his girlfriend and becoming alienated from his family, and all of this, and the downsides of obsession and what it can do to you. But it also raises the question, his ambition has always been to be this great drummer, and he accomplishes that. And it's like, would he have reached that level if he hadn't gone through all of that horrible stuff? And if Fletcher hadn't pushed him the way that he did? Which is a really interesting question, because I think that's true of a lot of us. I think a lot of us have dreams, a lot of us have like artistic ambitions, for example, and a lot of people don't accomplish them, and maybe it's partially because we're not willing to sacrifice as much as somebody like Andrew sacrificed. Like, we're not willing to go through pain or discomfort, be it emotional or physical. you know it's like he got to where he wanted to be, and Fletcher got him there. So I think you can read it either way. I think both things are true simultaneously, and I think that's really fascinating. Um, and like I said, I think J.K. Simmons is incredible in this. I think Miles Teller is amazing in this. When I saw this, I was like, that guy is a brilliant actor. He's going to do really cool shit. And then he did this, and he did Spectacular Now, which was really good. And then since then, he hasn't really done much. But he has time. Um, but J.K. Simmons is always good, but he's on another level in this movie, and the writing, like the insults they give J.K. Simmons are so good. Like, it's like funny and horrifying at the same time. The editing by Tom Cross is nuts. Really, really amazing, virtuosic kind of editing. Did I say that word already? I think I said that word already. That's fine. But yeah, it's a blast. It's fascinating. It's beautifully executed, and it's one of the more profound experiences I've had in a theater. Just walking out and processing the ending and the way that made me feel, and all the questions it brought up in my head. So yeah, for me, it's a 5-star film, and it's absolutely my favorite of his movies.
Right. Yeah. I was team Birdman that year, but Whiplash is great too.
Hobbit's pretty good that year too.
What's
Uh,
that?
No, I was saying the Hobbit's pretty great that year too. No,
Oh,
I'm just messing with you guys.
Oh.
That
Just
segues
teasing the next
into
episode.
Yeah, that segues
True.
what we're gonna be doing next. Peter Jackson is our next deep dive ranking. So I'm really excited about that. Thank you for watching our thoughts on Chazelle. Anybody have any closing remarks that they'd like to bring up? Emma Stone was also in Birdman. I forgot about that, but
Yeah.
I just love her.
Uh, I don't know. Do I have any? I'm looking forward what he's doing next. I'm not sure what is it actually, but is he working or something?
He's supposed to be working on something next year. I think they're gonna reveal that.
Yeah, yeah, he has something going. Which is, and I'm really curious to see what he's gonna do next, because like I loved Babylon, but obviously it was like a huge box office failure. People thought when it was
Yeah.
announced it was gonna get nominated for tons of Oscars, and that didn't happen. And it got like divisive reviews critically. So it's like even Chazelle said at the time, like I read an interview with him where he said, I'm gonna be able to make movies, obviously, but probably nothing at this scale and like this kind of budget. Like the next movie I make is probably gonna have to be smaller, just because they're not gonna give him that much money again for a while until he comes up with something really profitable. So yeah, I'm curious to see if he tries to like course correct and make something more crowd pleasing, or if he just continues to keep it weird. I mean, it's an exciting time in his career. I think weird and exciting time.
And he's the youngest
Yeah.
person to get an Academy Award, so and he's very young. He has plenty of time ahead of him. But I can kind of see him making something like a Coda, just a little bit lower budget, but also I'm expecting his next one to be at least a little bit more family friendly compared to Babylon. We'll see though.
Yeah.
PG clean, maybe.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, it looks like at least Vicky says that he has some sort of deal with Paramount Pictures. I don't know what's a first look deal, but it's probably something that Paramount Pictures can somehow, because how big of a flop it was, that they can, I don't know, I don't know how does it work, but like it's probably like an easier for them, I would, to sell, or I don't know, or to back out. I'm not sure.
From what I understand, and I'm not sure I'm totally correct, but I think with a first look deal, basically they're like, whatever you're making next, we wanna see it before anybody else. And we have the option to
Yeah.
make it.
Oh,
And
okay.
then if we don't want to make it, you can sell it to some other company, basically.
Oh, yeah. Well, that makes sense. Yeah.
Interesting.
So it's
Thank you
literally a
guys.
first look deal. Yeah.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Leave down your comments on Damien Chazelle. We'll be back with the next episode of Spielbergathon, Schindler's List. And Max, I'm not sure whenever he's going to join us next time, but he's always welcome on the show. Thanks for
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah,
Thanks for
for sure.
watching, guys.